It was around 1 a.m. when I heard my phone buzz on the nightstand. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was late, and I had just finished a long day of work, tiredness sinking into every bone in my body. I had been lying in bed, the glow of my phone screen the only light in the dark room. I reached for it with a lazy hand, half conscious of the text notification that had interrupted the silence of my thoughts. But when I saw the name on the screen, everything in my world shifted. It was her, Emma. We had been together for 3 years, and I thought I knew her. I thought we had it all figured out. We laughed together, shared secrets, planned for the future. Everything had seemed perfect. At least, that's what I thought. She had always been there when I needed her. We shared late-night talks, comfortable silences, saying moments that felt like they would last forever. So, when I saw her name pop up on my phone at that hour, I didn't expect the words that followed to rip my world apart. I unlocked the phone and stared at the message, heart pounding in my chest. Her message read, "Don't wait for me." Just those 4 words. But they were enough to shatter everything I thought I knew about our relationship. In an instant, my mind was racing. What did this mean? Was this some kind of joke? No, it couldn't be. Emma wasn't the type to joke around with something so serious. She never used to send cryptic messages, and yet here it was, right in front of me. My mind spun, and I could feel the knot in my stomach tighten. Something was wrong. I sat up in bed, eyes fixed on the message. There was no context, no explanation, just those 4 words. I began to question everything. Had I missed something? Was there a sign I hadn't seen before? The room felt colder as I waited for a follow-up message, some kind of explanation that would make sense of this. But nothing came. The seconds dragged by, feeling like hours. I couldn't just sit there. I had to know what was going on. I opened the conversation, scrolling back through our previous texts. We had just been talking that evening about meeting up later in the week, laughing about an inside joke. We were fine. Or at least, I thought we were. The contrast between what I thought was happening and what I was now reading felt like a punch in the gut. How could things change so suddenly? I tried to text her back, but my fingers froze on the screen. What could I even say? What do you mean? Felt too weak, too desperate. But I had no idea what else to ask. It was as if the world around me had shifted, and I was left standing on the edge, not knowing what would come next. Minutes went by, but she didn't respond. The silence was deafening. I put my phone down, trying to shake the confusion that was swirling in my mind. Was this a mistake? Was she playing some kind of game with me? But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The way the words "don't wait for me" hung in the air felt like a warning I didn't want to acknowledge, but I couldn't ignore. I needed answers. I decided to call her. My fingers hovered over the call button, and I hesitated. What if she didn't pick up? What if I was overreacting? What if I was imagining things? But I couldn't let it go. Not like this. Not with just a cryptic message hanging in the air between us. Nay, I dialed her number and waited, the sound of the ringing tone filling the silence. The seconds felt like they were stretching out longer than they should have. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the click, and then her voice. Hello? It was quiet, but I could hear something in the tone, something different. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it was there. Emma, it's me. I just got your message. What's going on? Why would you say that? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. She didn't speak, and I could hear her breathing, shallow and quick. I I don't know how to explain this, but I think it's over. Those words hit me harder than any punch ever could. My chest tightened, and I struggled to breathe. What do you mean it's over? Why? I never meant for it to happen, she said quietly. Her voice trembling, but I've been seeing someone else. I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't keep pretending. The words stung, each one cutting deeper than the last. She had been seeing someone else? The reality of the situation was sinking in, but I couldn't fully grasp it. I had been betrayed. The woman I trusted, the woman I had loved, had been with someone else behind my back. My mind raced to process this new information. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Why hadn't I seen it coming? I didn't know, I whispered, more to myself than to her. Who is he? How long? His name is Luke, she said, almost sounding ashamed. We met a few months ago at work. I I didn't plan for it to happen, but it did. Luke. The name felt foreign in my mouth. I tried to picture him, but nothing came to mind. What did he have that I didn't? Why hadn't I seen any signs? Emma, why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, the pain in my voice unmistakable. I was scared, she replied softly. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't live a lie anymore. Her words hung in the air, heavy and final. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to know every detail. But I knew deep down that it wouldn't change anything. She had already made her choice. I'm sorry, she added, her voice barely above a whisper, but I think it's best if we don't talk anymore. The phone call ended before I could say anything else. I sat there in the darkness, my hand still gripping the phone, unable to move. My world had just crumbled. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my relationship, had shattered in a single conversation. I'd been blindsided, and now I was left alone to pick up the pieces. I couldn't understand how this had happened. How had I not seen it? How had she been able to hide it from me for so long? Was it my fault for not noticing the signs? Or was this just the kind of thing that happened without any warning, without any reason? I lay back down in bed, staring up at the ceiling, my mind spinning. The silence of the room was suffocating, and I couldn't escape it. Everything felt wrong, like I was trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. But I had to face it. I had to face the reality that Emma wasn't the person I thought she was. And I had to figure out what came next. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind wouldn't stop racing, the thoughts spinning out of control, overwhelming me. Emma had been seeing someone else, Luke, and as much as I tried to force my mind to calm down, one thought kept pushing through the chaos. Who was Luke? How did he fit into all of this? I couldn't just let this go. I needed answers. The fact that Emma had been so secretive, so careful about hiding him from me, it gnawed at me. Who was this guy that she had chosen over me? How had he become such a part of her life that she was now willing to throw everything away for him? The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about the phone call. I tried to focus on work, but I kept finding my mind drifting back to Emma and Luke. I had to know more about him. I couldn't just let it go, not without understanding the full picture. I decided to confront Emma again. I called her, hoping she would pick up, but there was no answer. I tried texting her, asking her to tell me more about Luke. I needed details. She owed me that much, but again, nothing came through. It felt like she was shutting me out entirely. Frustration built inside me. How could she be so cold, so distant now? Everything we had shared, everything we'd built together, had been wiped away in the blink of an eye. And here I was, left with nothing but questions, a heart full of confusion and a mind that couldn't stop analyzing everything. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from an unknown number. I think you need to hear the whole story. I'm sorry it has to be like this, but it's time you knew. I stared at the message, confusion and curiosity swirling within me. Who was this? Why were they texting me? The message wasn't signed, but there was something about it that made me feel like this was the break I needed, the missing piece of the puzzle. I replied instantly, "Who is this? And what do you mean by the whole story?" Within seconds, the reply came through. "I'm Luke. I think we need to talk. It's time for the truth." I felt a wave of coldness wash over me. Luke, the man who had torn my life apart. I had never met him, but I had heard enough. He was the one Emma had been seeing, the one who had turned everything upside down. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to just let it all go. But I knew that if I didn't find out the truth now, I would never be able to move forward. My mind would stay stuck in this place of uncertainty. I took a deep breath and texted back, "I'm listening. Tell me everything." Luke didn't waste time. He explained that he had met Emma at work. It started out simple enough, an innocent friendship. They had been colleagues at the same marketing agency for over 6 months before anything remotely romantic had happened between them. At first, It had been nothing more than professional respect. Emma had been married, and Luke, like most of their coworkers, respected that. But as time went on, things began to change. Luke described Emma as being distant from her husband, like something was missing from her life. She had confided in him about the struggles in her marriage, how things weren't as happy as they seemed, how she felt trapped in a routine, unfulfilled, and isolated. Luke said she had been searching for something more, something that gave her the excitement she craved. At first, Luke had been just a shoulder for Emma to lean on. She would come to him with her problems, her frustrations, and they would talk for hours. They shared stories, ideas, and eventually that connection turned into something deeper. She began to rely on him more and more, and Luke, despite his own reservations, had found himself falling for her. According to Luke, their relationship wasn't planned. He didn't come into it with any intentions of being the other man. But Emma had made it clear that her marriage was falling apart, and she was emotionally distant from her husband. She had been lonely, looking for someone who could understand her, who could give her the attention and affection that her marriage no longer provided. "We never planned for this," Luke had written in the text. "It just happened. But when it did, I couldn't turn away. She made me feel like I was the one who truly saw her. She was so desperate for something real, something different. I never wanted to hurt you, man, but she chose me." I sat there reading his words over and over again, trying to process everything he was saying. I felt a mix of anger and sadness flooding through me. Emma had been unhappy, I understood that now. But had she been so unhappy that she would throw away everything we had? Was I really so blind that I didn't see it? Luke didn't just leave it there. He went on to explain how their relationship had grown over the past couple of months. They had spent more time together outside of work, meeting up for coffee, grabbing lunch, and eventually sharing intimate moments. They had connected on a level that Emma hadn't with me in a long time, and somewhere along the way, they had crossed the line. It had started with small touches, a lingering look, a shared secret, but soon it had become more than that. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," Luke continued in his message, "but she just couldn't stop herself, and neither could I. When she said she felt lost, like she didn't belong in her marriage anymore, I didn't know what to say. I was just there. I listened, and then it all changed. The words felt like daggers in my chest. Emma had been looking for someone to make her feel wanted, and in a moment of weakness, she had turned to Luke. She had chosen him over me, over everything we had built together. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that she had cheated, or the fact that she hadn't had the courage to come to me and say she was unhappy before letting it go this far. Luke's final message to me was simple, yet it hit hard. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, but I think it's clear now where she stands." That was it. He had told me everything he thought I needed to know. I sat there staring at the screen, the weight of his words sinking in. My world was spinning, but now I had the truth. Emma had chosen him. She had picked Luke, and I was left to pick up the pieces of a broken relationship. I sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Luke had offered his explanation, and in a way, I felt grateful for that. But it didn't make the pain go away. It didn't fix the fact that Emma had betrayed me. No amount of understanding could change that. I finally put my phone down, feeling drained. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with this information, but I knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed, and it would never be the same again. The hours that followed felt like a blur, but one thing was crystal clear: I was living in a nightmare. And no matter how hard I tried to wake up, it wasn't going away. I had the truth now. Luke had come forward, and in doing so, he had left me with a finality that cut deeper than anything I'd ever felt. Emma had betrayed me not just once, but over the course of months. She had chosen someone else, someone who wasn't me. I didn't know what to do next. A part of me wanted to pick up the phone and yell at Emma, demand to know why she had done this to me, why she hadn't come to me sooner, why she hadn't been honest about her feelings. But I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the hurt, the confusion, the disbelief. I felt like a fool, looking back at everything we had shared, all the moments that I thought were real. How had I missed the signs? Was I so blinded by love that I couldn't see the cracks forming in front of me? I needed answers from her. I needed to confront her face to face. But before I did that, I had to let it sink in. I needed time to process everything. What had happened to us? How had we gone from being two people in love, building a future together, to this? That evening, I found myself pacing back and forth in my apartment, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't shake the image of Emma and Luke together. What had they done when they were together? How had she been with him? I thought about their first meeting, how she had described it. They had met at work, she had confided in him, and somewhere along the way, she had started seeing him in a different light, and he had taken advantage of it. He had known she was vulnerable, and he had preyed on that weakness. I couldn't help but wonder if that was all I had been too, someone Emma had turned to out of convenience, out of familiarity, but not out of love. What had happened to all those late nights we spent talking? What had happened to the plans we made for the future? They now seemed like hollow promises, empty words that meant nothing. As much as I tried to calm myself down, I could feel the anger bubbling up inside of me. I wasn't angry just at Emma. I was angry at myself. I had let this happen. I had trusted her, opened up to her, believed in her, and now I was left with nothing but a broken heart and the feeling of betrayal that no amount of time would ever completely erase. The next morning, I could barely get out of bed. I was exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically. I had barely slept, and the weight of everything was suffocating. The thought of seeing Emma again, of confronting her, made my stomach churn. What would I even say? Would she apologize? Would she try to explain herself? Or would she simply confirm what I already knew, that she had made her choice? I couldn't bear the thought of it, but I knew I had to face her. I couldn't move forward without getting the truth from her directly. I decided to go to her apartment. I knew she'd be there. She always was, especially on weekends, when she didn't have work. My heart pounded as I drove, each mile bringing me closer to the woman who had once been my everything, but who now felt like a stranger. When I arrived, I sat in my car for a few minutes, trying to collect myself. I could see the light in her apartment window. She was home. I didn't want to go up there. I wanted to scream, to shout, to ask her how she could do this to me. But I had to be calm. I had to have control. I got out of the car and made my way to her building, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the quiet of the morning. My hands were shaking as I rang the doorbell. I felt like I was about to confront a stranger, not the woman I had once planned my life with. The door opened, and there she was. Emma. Her eyes widened when she saw me standing there. She looked different somehow. The warmth that used to radiate from her wasn't there anymore. Instead, there was a coldness in her expression, something that made my stomach tighten. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a little shaky. But there was an edge to it that I hadn't heard before. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. "We need to talk." She hesitated for a moment before stepping aside to let me in. The silence between us was unbearable as I walked into the living room. It was the same place where we had shared so many happy moments, but now it felt cold, empty. The warmth, the love, the connection we once had was gone, replaced by a heavy sense of finality. "I don't want to do this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper as she sank onto the couch, her eyes avoiding mine. "I didn't want you to find out this way." "Then why didn't you tell me the truth?" I asked, finally giving in to the anger that had been building inside me. "Why did you keep this from me? Why did you let me live in this lie?" Emma didn't answer at first. She just sat there, her hands clenched in her lap. I could see the tears in her eyes, but they didn't bring me comfort. They only made the situation worse. She was sorry, but sorry didn't fix the damage she had done. Sorry didn't undo the hurt. Sorry didn't bring back the trust that had been shattered. "I don't know," she said, finally looking up at me. "I guess I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to explain that I felt empty, that I needed something more than what we had." The words hit me like a slap in the face. Empty. What did that even mean? Hadn't we been enough for each other? Hadn't we built something real? All those years, all those plans, had they meant nothing? You felt empty, I repeated, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. What? So you decided to find someone else? Someone like Luke? Her face tightened at the mention of his name, but she didn't deny it. She didn't try to explain herself. She simply nodded, her voice trembling as she spoke. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she said. I never meant to hurt you, but I couldn't stop it. Luke, he made me feel seen. He made me feel alive again, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I swallowed hard, trying to fight back the tears that threatened to spill. How could she do this to me? How could she say all these things, knowing the pain they were causing me? You don't get to say that, I said, my voice breaking. You don't get to just throw everything we had away for him. You don't get to pretend that what we shared meant nothing. Emma's face crumpled as the tears finally began to fall. But it was too late for apologies, too late for explanations. She had already made her choice. I'm sorry, she whispered, barely audible, but it's over. I think we both knew it was over. And just like that, the finality of her words hit me like a tidal wave. It was over. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, had chosen someone else. There was nothing left to say. I turned and walked out of her apartment, my heart heavy with grief and betrayal. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The drive back to my apartment was a blur. The streets outside were moving, but it felt as though time had stopped entirely for me. The world seemed distant, unreal. I could still hear Emma's voice in my head, the way she had said it was over, the way she had confirmed what I had already feared. She had chosen Luke, and she had left me behind without a second thought. I had been betrayed, and now I had to figure out how to survive in this new, empty reality. I didn't know what to feel in that moment. Anger, sadness, disbelief. It was all there, swirling together in a storm inside of me, crashing against my heart, threatening to break me. But the one emotion that stood out the most was the overwhelming feeling of emptiness. I had spent so much time with her, shared so much of myself with her. I had trusted her completely, and now, that trust had been shattered in the worst way possible. When I finally pulled into my parking spot, I sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel, trying to gather my thoughts. I had no idea what to do next. There were no clear answers, no roadmap to follow. I had never been in a situation like this before. I didn't know how to deal with this kind of pain. I eventually forced myself out of the car and made my way into my apartment. It felt colder than usual, the silence in the space unbearable. I went through the motions taking off my jacket, setting my keys on the table, but everything felt mechanical. My mind was too overwhelmed, too numb to focus on anything else. It was like my body was on autopilot, and my mind was somewhere far away, trapped in the past, replaying the conversation with Emma over and over again. I sat down on the couch, my head in my hands, the weight of everything pressing down on me. How had we gotten here? What had gone wrong? I thought about the times we had shared, the love we had once had, and now it all seemed so meaningless. The love letters, the inside jokes, some of the plans for the future. What was the point of it all if it could be destroyed in an instant? The clock on the wall ticked loudly, but it seemed to be mocking me. Each second a reminder that I was running out of time to fix this, running out of time to understand what had happened. I grabbed my phone thinking I might call a friend, maybe someone who could help me make sense of all of this. But as soon as I picked it up, I saw the messages from Luke. I had never intended to keep talking to him, but his words were still haunting me. It wasn't enough that he had stolen Emma from me. He had to rub salt into the wound, to make sure I understood just how much he had claimed her. He didn't seem to care about the pain he had caused me. I thought about deleting the messages, erasing all traces of him from my phone. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Something about knowing the full extent of what had happened, knowing exactly how deep this betrayal went, was somehow necessary. I scrolled through the texts again, each one a reminder of Emma's choice. Luke had admitted to everything, how their relationship had started, how they had gotten closer over time, how he had become her emotional escape. And the part that hurt the most was how he described the moments when they were together, the way Emma had confided in him, how she had sought him out when she felt alone. It felt like the foundation of our entire relationship had been built on lies. In one of his texts, Luke had written, "I never meant for any of this to happen. I just want to be honest with you, man. I thought you deserved to know everything, no matter how much it hurt. I'm sorry for that." Sorry? Was that supposed to make me feel better? He had taken my life, my relationship, and turned it upside down, and now he was apologizing? It didn't change anything. It didn't make it any less painful. I was consumed by it. I couldn't stop thinking about how Emma had been with him, how she had chosen him. I wanted to scream, to break something, to do anything, to release the rage that was bubbling up inside me. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there, frozen in place, unable to move or act. The silence in my apartment felt suffocating, as though the walls were closing in on me. It was as if everything I had ever known had collapsed, leaving nothing but the debris of broken dreams. I had to face the truth. Emma had left me. She had betrayed me in the most cruel way possible. And now, she was gone. I thought back to the times when we had been happy, when everything felt right. The late night walks in the park, the quiet dinners at home, the laughter that filled the spaces between us. Those moments now felt like they belonged to someone else, someone who had no connection to the person I had become today. I couldn't hold on to those memories anymore. They only hurt. They reminded me of a time when I thought I was loved, when I thought everything was real. But now, I saw them for what they were, shadows of a love that never truly existed. Emma had been pretending, and I had been blind to it. I tried calling her again, but, as expected, she didn't answer. I left a voicemail, hoping she would pick up and finally tell me the truth. I didn't need her to apologize. I needed her to explain. I needed to understand why. No, but I knew deep down that I wasn't going to get those answers. She had already made her decision, and nothing I said or did could change it. It was then that I realized something. I had been living in the shadow of someone else's choices for far too long. I had been waiting for Emma, waiting for her to come back, to apologize, to make things right. But she wasn't coming back. She had moved on, and I had to do the same. But how? The question lingered in my mind. How do you move on when your world has been shattered? How do you rebuild after someone you loved and trusted has ripped your heart apart? I didn't know the answer. I didn't have the strength to figure it out yet. But I knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning of the journey. I would have to face the pain, face the betrayal, and somehow find a way to move forward. Nah, it wouldn't be easy, but I had to do it.